If you haven't seen my part 1, where I make the mold that I'm going to cast the figure in, click here to see part 1. Casting figures, part 2. Casting the figure by Spells.dk. In this video I will be using epoxy resin. I will be using a glazing epoxy for surfboards, but any epoxy will do. You will need a small mixing container, for example a plastic cup, and of course the mold that we made in part 1. Later on I will do the math and calculate the price of the figure. To mix the epoxy I will be using a scale. This makes it easier to mix the correct amounts from large containers. My epoxy is mixed 2:1, 2 part resin to 1 part hardener. In this video you only see one mold, but I have 3 molds that I want to fill. Each mold takes around 10 grams of resin, so I need 30 grams total, 20 grams of resin and 10 grams hardener. Mix up the appropriate amount of resin and hardener. Make sure you have something underneath so you don't ruin your table. Apply some sort of water-free lubricant to the mold so that the resin don't stick too much to the mold. Pour in the resin and make sure it flows into every crack and detail. Press the mold together and hold it under pressure. You can use rubber bands, but I just used a can to hold it while the epoxy hardens. Always let the epoxy dry at least 3 times as long as it says on the package. When the epoxy is cured so it's completely hard, gently pry the 2 halves of the mold apart. Then retrieve the figure from the mold. Because I forgot to apply lubricant, I had to cut the second part of the mold in pieces to get the figure out. Save all the pieces of the mold because it can be remelted and used for another mold. As you can see here, there was some damage to the figure and it came out in 3 pieces. But it was nothing a few drops of super glue couldn't fix. This is the final result. I have calculated the price of casting figures using 4 kinds of epoxy. Because of shipping prices, the cheapest for me was to use surfboard glazing epoxy. At this last slide, you can see that the final price is around $2-3 for 5 figures. $5 if you use expensive high quality epoxy. If you like these videos, please subscribe and click here to see part 3, where I paint the figure so you can really see the details.